Lane Transit District meeting to order with roll call. Find my words. Susan Cox.
Here.
Michelle Weber here. Pete Knox.
Here.
Lawrence Green.
Here.
Heather Murphy.
Here.
Gino Grimaldi.
Here.
And Kelly Sutherland.
Here.
All right, moving into public comment. When called upon, you will be asked to come forward to the presenter table or unmute your microphone if attending remotely. Please begin by stating your name and whether you reside within or outside of Lane Transit District service area. Each speaker will be allotted a maximum of 3 minutes. Once your time is up, the moderator will ask in-person speakers to conclude or will mute remote participants. Disruptive behavior, including personal attacks, harassment, bullying, or intimidation, will not be tolerated. This applies to both those offering public comment and audience members. Board members will listen to all public comments but will not respond during the comment period except to ask clarifying or follow-up questions. Following the conclusion of public comment, board members may make statements in response to the feedback received. And our first speaker is Michael Aguilar.
Hello, board. Thank you for having me. My name is Mike Aguilar. I rival Jameson in having the best job in the whole world. I bet he would think his job is the best, but I'm the executive director of Circle of Friends. We're a nonprofit that supports youth with disabilities in our community, and I'm so excited that 4 of our youth are with us tonight, and I think at least one is going to offer some comments as well. We're here today because the STIF Advisory Committee unanimously approved funding for Circle of Friends to receive 5310 funds for a school bus for our program. Currently, and today is an example, with 4 kids, we wouldn't be able to fit, we wouldn't have been able to come all together on one ride because most buses usually only have 2 tie downs. And currently we reside, our program is in Cottage Grove, and the route from Cottage Grove to the Eugene area is rather infrequent. So we're here to ask for your approval of the STIF Advisory's request to help us acquire that bus so we can get our kids safely around the Lane Transit District. Oh, I apologize, Michelle. I am a resident of Springfield, so that's where I reside within the boundaries. In addition to transporting our current kids, we hope to reach more youth with disabilities in even more rural parts of Lane County by taking the bus to create pop-up events to support families who don't have access to the services that Circle of Friends provides. So thank you so much. I appreciate it, and I welcome any questions if at any point you do have them. But again, my name is Mike Aguilar, best job in the world, executive director of Circle of Friends, and I get to work with these amazing kids every single day.
Thank you, Michael. Next speaker, Ethan Jones.
Ethan.
I'm Tara, his mother, and we live in Cottage Grove. Oh, do I need to go over there?
Yeah, if you could come over here with the microphone.
Okay.
Should we move again?
Oh, yeah, if you give him a mic, he'll definitely talk. You have a lot to say, don't you? Yeah. Well, he's plugged into a machine, so. Up to the cable? Well, he's plugged into his.
Oh, is he plugged in? Okay.
Yeah. So, my name is Tara. I'm Ethan's mom, and we live in Cottage Grove, and he has attended Circle of Friends for 3 years. And we are just hoping for a bus so that they can go on more field trips and do more exciting things that he deserves to be able to do like other kids.
Thank you. Next speaker, Tara Poindexter. Oh, sorry. You told me that. Moving on. Next speaker, Sam O'Brien.
Oh, no, thank you. My name is Sam, and I'm Steven's mom, and he attends Circle of Friends. We are programs within the Lane Transit District area, and he has been at Circle of Friends for about 3 years, and the programming support that they offer our family is unmatched. The amount of detail and care to these kids and making you feel like you have a community who cares about your child who doesn't always fit into a box in any other area has been a blessing to our family. I am, encouraged about the funding that is up for proposal, and I would love for that to be granted for Circle of Friends because it would allow my son and, other youth in the programming area who are oftentimes excluded due to not being able to ride public transportation or, be able to go with their friends on outings. There's been times in the past, in even our school district, that it was asked if Stephen could just not bring his wheelchair because there wasn't enough seats for as many wheelchair students as they needed to transport. So I think it's important for a program like Circle of Friends is like stepping outside the box, encouraging these youth for participating and getting out and being included in their community. So we really hope that the funding is granted. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Jen Davis.
Oh, you want me to go to this one? There you go. There you go. Oh, hi. My name is Jen Davis. I'm the one of the co-founders of Circle of Friends. So thank you so much. I live in the LTD service area.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for showing your support to this grant that's being up for a vote. As you heard from some of our families, having accessible transportation would be really vital for just complementing the programming that we're doing in our in our current school site at Cottage Grove. I wanted to talk about a few things that reliable transportation would mean for our program. So school districts, just a quick little tutorial, school districts can contract with our program to provide special education services. And because the districts approve that placement, that means they'd be responsible for transporting the student to our program in Cottage Grove. But it would be utilizing their current buses that serve their whole district. So oftentimes that does limit them with how many buses their current districts need to bus the other students to their other school programs. They have limited drivers and limited aides, so sometimes the lack of transportation prevents students from attending our program. So I think that is something of note. Having accessible transportation, in the past we've partnered with Adaptive Recreation, and as Mike mentioned, they have... Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, Addie has something to say. I love it. Speak, girl. Having reliable transportation beyond just the limitations of 3 tie-downs for wheelchairs would be so valuable. We have a partnership that had to end with Dorena School. We were going on Fridays to their Friday Fun Day, and I was able to take 3 students, but I had to rotate other students to be able to go do planned inclusion. So having a bus would allow us accessible access to a program like Dorena School, who we developed that partnership with, and we'd be able to take all of our students. Beyond just serving our school program, we could utilize this specialized bus to go out and serve, Lane County in other rural areas like Florence. So I know, just geographically, Lane County is very wide, and which means, we're serving Florence and, Cottage Grove and even North, but being able to take specialized services to these other rural areas would be a a part of our plan. So with your support, we can not only serve our current students, but expand as well. Thanks so much for your support.
Thank you. Our next speaker, and if I get this wrong, I apologize. I'm not sure if this is an A or a U. Kayla or Kaylu Vance.
Okay, hello. I'm Kayla. This is my daughter, Addie. She's looking now for her caregiver. Where'd she go? Okay, I wrote some things down because I didn't want to forget these things. So I'm here just as mom, advocating for her.
Kayla, real quick, do you reside within or outside of the Lane Transit District area?
In.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Or I'm sorry, we just moved to Cottage Grove, so yeah. So that is why we are going to be attending Circle of Friends. For Addie, she's level 3 autistic, has significant sensory mobility challenges, which is newer in our life. We are losing mobility and we're trying to understand why that's happening. But she used to love riding the school bus, and she was trying to say Pete the cat to everybody. Yeah. And those rides were some of her favorite part of the day. But as those mobility needs increased and she entered the high school age, the public school environment was really overwhelming and hard for her to navigate successfully, so we ultimately missed out on an entire year of school while we were trying to find placement. And so we ended up going to Bridgeway, which was really great, but at that cost, we lost the ability to go on field trips and being out in the community, and so it became very isolating. But now we're going to go to Circle of Friends because they've expanded to age 21, so that's really exciting for us because it's not going to go 40 minutes every day to school. With that, just being able to see her lose the interest to be out in the community and to be around peers was really challenging for us. I know that Circle of Friends is going to be helping her educational needs and social and developmental needs because she's already connecting with these kids so great. But however, with the accessible transportations, students like Addie miss out on those opportunities to be a part of the community. So a bus that has, a ramp and place for transport chairs for the providing safe opportunities for us will be really meaningful to have life skill experiences and community inclusion because Addie, just like all these other kids, deserve to have a chance to explore and learn and experience alongside other peers. And this bus would not only benefit her, but all these other kiddos just like her. So just asking to support sponsoring this bus because it would be life-changing and bring back a light and happiness for a lot of these kids. And yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Robin Taylor.
Hello, my name is Robin Taylor, and I live in Springfield, so well within the district. I am a lead paraeducator at Circle of Friends, and getting this bus would really be incredibly valuable to our students. Last year, we weren't able to go on any field trips besides ones that we could walk to because we didn't have any transportation. And this year, we were able to go to wildlife safari, which the children loved going to. They got to experience something outside of their world, and they got to do shopping. They got to practice going to just being in a different environment than their school. And as I've worked with kids with disabilities, really the real world examples and that experience is more valuable than anything we could really teach them in the classroom. Being able to go to a store and purchase something, being able to, we don't have a playground at our school, and being able to go to Amazon Park would be incredible for them because they don't have, that's pretty much the only park in our area that is adaptable and where they can actually go on the equipment. They could slide down, they could go on swings. We've also done splash pads, which they loved, and we would love to do more of those. Our partnership with Dorina, they've also offered to do a storybook theater for our kids, which is much more accessible than just having a teacher read a book for them. They could see people acting out the entire story. And our only barrier to that has been transportation. And we've also had a few students who their only barrier to attending our program was transportation. We had them all set up to come in. We were getting all our materials ready, all of our trainings ready, but because transportation fell through with the districts, that student wasn't able to come to our school. So getting this bus would also expand like beyond our kids that we already serve. We would be able to serve even more, and going out to those rural districts to provide services would really be valuable for those kids. I used to work with a kid in Oak Ridge, and there's not very many resources at all for them out there. So having a mobile bus that could bring activities and accessible art and accessible storytelling so that the kids can make their own books would really change their lives. So, thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. Courtney Leonard.
Hi, good evening. My name's Courtney Leonard, and I do reside in the Lane Transit District region. I currently serve as the board chair for Circle of Friends, and I have some prepared remarks, but I also just want to pause and say this is so beautiful, and I'm a little bit overwhelmed, to be perfectly honest, because I know what it takes to come out and to be in this space when we have a world that's not fully accessible for all of our kids. So just a moment to say props and thanks to all of the parents and families who came out tonight. As you can see, these amazing students, they communicate in really unique and important ways. And we want to express our really sincere gratitude for the endorsement of this advisory committee who voted to unanimously support the Circle of Friends with the potential of purchasing the bus. We recognize this not only as an investment in our schools' infrastructure, but also an investment in access and inclusion and community participation for some of our most vulnerable students along the I-5 corridor. And so for our school community, this is a truly transformative opportunity, and I really can't underscore that enough. I'm the step-parent of a daughter with really unique abilities. She uses a wheelchair, and I know firsthand that transportation is never as simple as just getting in a car and going. Every outing as a family that we take requires incredibly careful planning and equipment inventory, transfer considerations, site coordination, and really careful attention to her physical and medical needs. And we have to anticipate those challenges really far in advance. And so for many families like ours, transportation becomes the factor that determines whether participation in school and community enrichment is possible at all. We know that community sustains us, and meaningful growth and learning for students happens both inside the classroom and in our community at large. And it happens in parks, it happens in libraries and in grocery stores. It happens in volunteer sites and community events and workplaces. And these are places where our students can develop skills, where they begin to understand their role in a broader world, build relationships, and practice communication. And for students with significant disabilities, access to these experiences, as you've heard tonight, are entirely dependent on whether transportation is available very often. An accessible school bus would change this equation for our students. It would reduce the daily logistical burdens for our families who are already managing complex medical, physical, and educational needs. It would improve consistency for attendance and participation, and probably most importantly, it would expand what's possible beyond our school building and increase the visibility and access. So on behalf of our students and families, thank you for your consideration, and we're honored to be in this work with you, and we look forward to future partnerships. Thank you.
All right. Hi, I'm Mike Funderburk II. I'm an operator here at Lane Transit District, an instructor, but I'm here today as the Union Executive Board Officer. So first, I'd like to thank the negotiating teams and bargaining teams on both sides for this new contract that we've got proposed. They both came to the table ready to work, put in the hours to what we think is a good and fair contract. I've been in my role here for about 11 months. Been employed here for just under 15 years. My friends and family all work here. So, let's see here. Really hate public speaking. It's great. But no, both sides came right to the table ready to work. We got a contract that we got proposed in early, on time, not going months past, to what we think is fair for both sides. And so we really hope you, as a board, see it that way as well. I noticed here, since I've been here in this position, the communication between management and union has really improved. They're making great strides to build a good relationship. And I got to say, Jameson, Mike Hirsch, they've done a great job of building a relationship. So that's kind of all I got for the day. All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, our final speaker is Brennan Smith.
Michelle, while they're settling in, who's charged? So he really wanted to say something.
Good evening. I'm Brennan Smith. This is Olivia Smith. We live in Cottage Grove, so in the transit area. Been at Circle of Friends for, I think, 3 years. Completely changed her life and our lives for the better. As somebody pointed out earlier, there's not really any way for these kids to like be on the bus together and go do something together. And these are all of her friends. And I think it's important that they all get to spend that time with each other. Sorry. And then just for future kids, you know, you don't really think about it until you have a child that is highly disabled, but it affects every aspect of your life. And anything that makes that easier, or potentially easier for other kids as well, so they can get out and do things. Unfortunately, Olivia is nonverbal, but she's still the most social person in our family, probably the most social person that I know. She really loves to get out and, you know, be in the sun, feel the wind, and just get to talk with people and meet with people. And I'd love for her and all these other kids to be able to do the same thing, and future kids as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And we are now going to hear from Ethan.
Hi, I'm Ethan, and I want a new one. And
Direct and to the point, I like it. Okay, any board member responds or comment?
no.
Pete?
I just wanted to thank everybody who came out. I know there's probably a lot for you guys to do, and I've saw the Circle Friends stuff when we, because Gino and I are on the STIF Advisory Committee, and they did unanimously approve that. So, but thank you so much for coming in and talking to us.
Any other? No? Okay. Well, thank you all for coming and speaking to us and sharing your kids with us. It's always, it helps to have the visuals, right, and to really be able to see what that impact and the difference that can be made here. So thank you. Next, we are doing board reports. I'm sorry. Oh, you have online. I always forget to ask about online. Sorry.
Thank you so much. My name is John Gangle. I am a recording secretary with ATU 757. I was elected by the membership as one of their representatives. And I'm sorry my video feed doesn't seem to be working. I wanted to give a huge shout out to both sides of the bargaining team. This current contract, as we proposed, is going to go a long way to improve every aspect of our service. Both sides came to the table with a lot of trust and a lot of respect and a strong desire to heal old wounds and old injuries. And I think that this contract succeeds on that. So on behalf of the membership, I am going to ask for the board of directors to vote to ratify this contract. It goes a long way to support the workers, the district, and the community at large. I also want to give a huge shout out to how quick we came to this contract. The excellent leadership of the LTD management team has allowed us to bargain on time. In the past, there's been times where we get distracted by bargaining, and that takes away from the time better served to the community. To the board of directors, to Jameson Otten, to Mike Hirsch, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for putting our community needs first. That's what this contract means to me, and that's what this new level of cooperation means to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. Are there any more hands online? Okay, thank you. Now we will move into board reports. Lane Council of Governments, Pete?
Thanks. They haven't had a meeting in a couple of months. We'll be having a meeting next Thursday, and I think the only thing really important on the agenda as far as we're concerned is that we'll be probably passing the next fiscal year's budget.
Okay. Do you want to take Metropolitan Policy Committee too?
Might as well, as long as we're on a roll here. The MPC met earlier this month, and really the big thing that is relevant, the MPC voted to approve a letter of support for two of the STIF proposals that are going to be considered amongst the many that we have later this evening.
And Lane Act, Jameson, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I do. So we don't have a report this month. There was a meeting. We were unable to attend, but we'll put the minutes or a summary of the minutes in the next report.
Okay, perfect. Strategic Planning Committee, Gino, do you want to take that one?
I was unable to attend, so I cannot.
Kelly, do you have anything to share with us for Strategic Planning Committee?
I was also not in attendance for that meeting.
Okay. And the Bylaws Committee, I'll take that one, Pete, and give you a break. We recently met and recommend the changes to the bylaws that we will be seeing in the packet later on. So with that, we've concluded board reports, and Jameson, the CEO report is next.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Michael was right. I may have the second best job in the area. You're not going to hear anything from me that tops what you just heard in public comment from any of the speakers. But we do get to one of my favorite parts of the night. I'd like to invite Josh Schmidt up to the podium along with Casey, who is our Employee of the Month.
Thank you, board members, for allowing me to be here tonight. I get the great pleasure to present Casey Minnis as EOM, Employee of the Month. She was recognized by a fellow employee, and this employee says that they wanted to recognize Casey for her outstanding contribution over the past couple of months. She has continued to be an incredible asset to the operations team and has stepped up to take on additional work and responsibilities due to the open position. Not only does she consistently complete everything asked of her, but she does so with a positive attitude and a high level of professionalism. Casey treats everyone with the utmost respect, even in a fast-paced environment where operations is constantly busy and she's pulled in multiple directions, and I can attest to this. I've had the privilege to work with her on the HASIS project, and this is her fellow employee, and truly hope that LTD recognizes the value she brings to the team. And I can attest to that. And before we go forward, I'm Josh Schmidt. I'm the Interim Director of Operations and Public Safety. I do think this is a great pleasure to present Casey Minnis as the Employee of the Month. She has done a fabulous job in the 2 years, 9 months, and 11 days that she's been here. Not that anybody's counting. I truly have worked with her side by side on many projects. She does a great job, puts her all in, and as you can tell, that smile is there all the time, even under extreme situations. So, Casey, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much to everyone for nominating me for this. I really want to thank Eric Evers and Jake McCallum for seeing my potential in my interview. I really wanted to be here in any capacity that I could because it has a great reputation as a place to work. And then moving forward, Jake McCallum just set me up to succeed. Really gave me a lot of time to work with Julie, who's no longer in our department or at LTD. And they trained me thoroughly. It's made this transition without them a lot easier. Not to say that it's easy. I am the admin for over 200 people, so it's a lot of support that I provide, but I've been given a lot of great support, and that includes Josh and many other people in our department. They fuel me every day. The people I work with side by side, the operators, the stories I get to hear about the work they're doing on the road, the incredible hard work that they do in addition to our public safety officers just carries me every day, so thank you.
Poster with the smile that we're seeing right here. It matches the poster. A pin.
Thank you.
A letter of recognition and some spending money.
Thank you.
And a plaque.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yep. One thing I'd be remiss to not add, Casey's one of those people, that smile is there all the time, like Josh said, even during the construction for the OCC. So business doesn't stop, right? The buses hit the road, whether we're in little modular trailers out front or whether we're in brand new facilities in the back. And Casey was one of the key people to make sure that we kept running no matter what the circumstance was. So I want to point that out and thank you. Thank you for that, well deserved. All right, going into the monthly operations performance update, just a few things I'll keep brief. Fixed route ridership is up about 4% over the rolling 12 months. We are still going to hold pat on making a correlation between fuel prices and recent ridership. We want to make sure the numbers are all in there in the summer months are reflected as well. But we do see a trend with more people on fixed route service. Our MX ridership, other direction, that's down about 8%. Recall that we started doing more fare checks along MX. In April, we did over 5,000 of those. So we're trying to really get to a baseline of what the ridership actually looks like. So you'll recall 2 meetings ago, we had a report on that, and we found that the ridership was going down, but the fare recovery was actually going up. So not necessarily bad news, it just may be the real news on what's actually happened with real ridership on MX. Absenteeism, we've been tracking that for some time. For the rolling 12 months, that's down about 2%. So that's good. That's our unanticipated operator absenteeism, which impacts how we deliver service. And finally, mobility services are up about 2% trip volume over the past rolling 12 months. So I'll take any questions on the operating report. Yeah. Okay, I'll go right into the department reports. I do want to speak to the LTD employee handbook, which is under consent. Big document, revised since 2023. So changes that get it in line with Oregon statutes and laws. Paid leave Oregon wasn't in the previous document. It's in this document. But not very big, no substantive changes. We're going to bring that to you each year. So each year as part of the budget process, because this is policy for the organization, we're going to bring that to you. And as policies change, we'll certainly outline what those changes are. But we want to get into the rhythm of having that handbook approved by the board. Under the marketing area, the American Bus Benchmarking Group, we're a member of that organization, completed a rider survey in May. The goal was to get at least 500 responses. We got over 900. This will provide information on rider satisfaction and also safety perception. We hear a lot about safety on transit. We capture the real numbers. The perception is real as well, so we'll be able to get insight on what that perception is. We should have that information with the comparables this fall. We'll have the raw data sometime this month, but the actual comparators with the benchmarking will be ready by the fall. The battery electric buses that we are transferring to LA, we are waiting on the Federal Transit Administration region in Los Angeles to approve. You all have voted to approve. LA Metro's board, our Region 10 of FTA has approved it. So we're just waiting for LA. Folks from LA have made a site visit to come collect some information on the vehicle. So all indications are it's a go. It's just a little timing thing with Los Angeles. And then finally, if Mike Hirsch were here, he would talk about how hard it is to hire fleet diesel mechanics. So we're making some grounds in that area. We recently attended LCC's annual Trades Expo, which is opportunity to table with potential students and potential employees down the road to get LTD in their mindset as a career option when they're ready. We're also going to be meeting with LCC leadership to talk about how we can further tighten our relationship to try to create a pipeline for diesel mechanics. So we'll keep you filled in as those conversations progress, but early on in those. So with that, I'll pause for department reports. Any questions you may have there? Okay. Any questions on the delegated authority monthly report? Okay. And I'll invite Dave up to speak to the SBC biannual report.
All right. Thank you, Jameson. Good evening, board members. Dave Roth, Director of Mobility Planning and Policy. So since we had a couple board members absent from the last SPC meeting, you will get the notes here from that meeting in my biannual report. So as a reminder, we come back every 6 months and provide an update on what the SPC has been up to. And so I'm here to share the most recent 6 months update. So we'll start with our January 15th meeting at the beginning of the calendar year. We had several items for that meeting. The first one, we had a presentation by Oregon Department of Transportation staff on their new capital investment development process. So this is a new process that ODOT is implementing within their agency. And the reason it's important for us is because we have a vested interest in the types of projects that they're investing in within Lane County. So we do have have a couple of projects that we worked to advocate for within the region to get onto their draft CIP list. And those are projects like the Beltline River Road interchange area, something we have an interest in to see buses speeded up through that area, as well as a potential future Division Avenue bridge over the Lime River, which could open up the opportunity to provide a new route going across east-west across the river up there. The next item in January was our fixed route bus stop ADA assessment project. This is a project being managed by Randy Stoudinger, who's one of our project managers here at LTD. And I think some of you were at that meeting, so you probably heard we're basically looking at all of our bus stops across the system, well over 1,000 bus stops, to understand the condition they're in and whether or not they meet ADA accessibility requirements. And so you're going to hear much more about that project in the coming months. We'll have that project in front of the board to give you a sense of the scale of the issue and how we'll tackle that over time. The next item, we talked about a potential pilot program that could serve communities that do not currently have fixed route transit within their neighborhoods. So these are, in particular, some of the neighborhoods that lost service during the pandemic within our service area. And we talked about that as a potential pilot. And the last item in January was our audible announcements pilot on our vehicles. So this is kind of maybe a little bit of a low visibility project, but it's a high impact project and more work than we anticipated, but we have a great team working on it. And basically what it means is that we determined that we needed to go above and beyond the basic accessibility requirements for our audible stop announcements on our vehicles. And instead of just doing major stops and stations, we're now piloting on some key routes all stops. So that if you have a visibility impairment or maybe you're just not paying attention to the signs, the reader boards inside, you can actually hear the announcements now on every stop. And so that's a nice customer satisfaction piece there. So that was January. Our next meeting was in March. We had another item on the fixed route ADA assessment. We also covered the coordinated plan update. So this is a plan that you will hear about more this late summer, early fall, where we'll bring it forward for adoption by the board. In May, we talked about our transit and shared mobility study. So this is the transit bike share project that we're actively working on. We're participating in a study that's funded by ODOT to understand how we can most efficiently and effectively think about combining and integrating bike share into the transit portfolio. And we're making pretty good progress there. I'll just note that we recently released a request for information to understand what's out in the marketplace right now for equipment to make a future capital investment in new equipment for the region. Also in May, we covered our fixed route service policy, which I'll talk a bit more about tonight. So I'll reserve that for later. And then finally in June, our last meeting this month, June 2nd, we had guests from the University of Oregon who shared their recently adopted transportation plan for the U of O campus. And there's some really interesting opportunities for coordination or better coordination with the university to better support students and faculty getting to and from the U of O, especially as they continue to downsize the amount of surface parking available on campus. They're going to need other modes of getting around and getting to campus there. Then finally, we had a last update in June with SBC on the coordinated public transit human services plan, and we brought to them the final draft plan in June for their review, and from there it comes back to the board for adoption, like I said, later this summer, early fall. So with that, that concludes my report on what we've been up to with SBC so far this year, and I'm happy to take any questions if you'd like.
Questions? I don't see any questions. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
With that, we'll conclude the CEO report.
All right. Monthly finance report, Pete.
Thank you, Chair. The You'll find in the packet the finance report generated by our CFO. It's dated at the end of April. The big deal with this one, actually two things I'd like to highlight. Number one, that we are kind of rounding the corner into the end of the fiscal year, which will be the end of this month. And what's shaping up is that things are what we're actually doing and what the budget actually says are beginning to look very much in line, which is a good thing. The other thing is that we've had a little bit more payroll tax revenue than we initially expected. Not a lot, but it's enough to, that it's a good thing. I guess our economy's doing well here. And that should conclude my report.
Thank you, Pete. All right, consent agenda. Do board members have any items they want removed? Okay, then I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, we will take a roll call vote there. Susan Cox.
Yes.
Michelle Weber, yes. Pete Knox.
Yes.
Lawrence Green.
Yes.
Heather Murphy.
Yes.
Gino Grimaldi.
Yes.
Kelly Sutherland.
Yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously. And that takes us to board action items. And Jameson, I'll turn that one over to you.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. The first item is adoption of resolution number 2026-06-17-18, Leadership Development Services. You heard the presentation some time ago about the Leadership Development Program that we launched over this past year. This item takes us into year 2. I invite Wendy Frisbee to the podium to speak to this topic.
Good evening, Board. So as you guys know, we had Andrew here earlier this year, as Jameson shared. Our program started in July of 2025, where we brought Andrew and Susie Lentz on board. They talked to the chiefs and talked to us more about like understanding how to know yourself to lead yourself, and really started a process with us to really help develop the chiefs into better leaders. And so, as you guys recall, we brought that to the board in August and did a little bit of the mapping with you guys. And then we expanded that in August also to our pulse groups. So the pulse groups are a group of about 40 individuals here at LTD that were selected based on their just ability to provide feedback and have a love for the district and wanting to help make sure that we were taking the direction that they wanted to see. And so they were able to provide very crucial just feedback about what's going on in the district, what the culture was, areas of feedback where we could improve, and just changes we can make to processes. In January to this, we also added a pilot group with the directors where they were learning more about the Leadership Academy, which is, that kind of plays into what we're going to go into for next year. But this Leadership Academy was a pilot program that we were using to have the directors kind of test it out for us. This Leadership Academy is actually going to be delivered to our staff now. The directors will be coaches of that, but more to come on that in a moment. But the directors actually took that training and got feedback back to Susie and Andrew to get us now to where we are now, where we're ready to enter into year 2. What all that pre-work and why I'm mentioning that is it really helped to lay the groundwork of where we are now. There's so much that we've, I think, changed in this organization. We're stronger as leaders. We see like the great comments from the ATU this evening about how great it was to work with leadership here. And I really feel like this is a culture that we have definitely improved upon and just making it a better place to work for all of our employees. There's a lot of other hard work that, as you guys well know, that went into that, but this was a piece of that puzzle. And so what we're going to do is looking into year 2 is we really consider this more of a, like the growth year. So we really have kind of made a lot of changes. We've had a lot of growth. We want to continue that growth, but we have to make sure that those foundations are still solid. So what will happen in year 2 is Andrew and Susie will still come in. They're going to help be coaches to the chiefs. We're going to add a coaching group for the directors to do the same type of work. And instead of the chiefs just having separate sessions with just Andrew and Susie, we're going to combine those that allow the chiefs for part of a day, the directors for part of a day, and then a combined group. We found that that really helps kind of move the needle quite a bit in some of those tougher discussions. We're going to refresh the Pulse group. It's going to bring, I'm not thinking we're going to do another 40 people, but another group that's going to bring new highlights and new feedback that we maybe don't have from this other group to make sure that we're still growing in the right direction. Are there any blind spots that we need to hit? And learning more from that. But the biggest piece of that is that Leadership Academy that I was just teaching or talking about. And what we want to do is take that concept and actually bring it to the organization. The directors will be coaches to their teams that are taking this, and it just helps to bring this consistent language to the organization. Part of this also includes an emerging leaders pathway, which is very exciting. Something I've wanted to do here for a few years now, and start to develop those new leaders that are coming into LTD. You know, we have great staff here. Let's develop them up so that they can be our next leaders and give them all the keys to be successful. We want to continue that valuable feedback that we're getting from the Pulse group, keep on making improvements as we go along, and just, you know, keep on evaluating our processes and procedures to make sure that we are becoming that employer of choice, which is definitely one of our goals. So for that, it's going to be a $295,000 ask for this agreement. And so I will ask if you guys have any questions.
Any questions? I don't see any questions. Okay. So I would entertain a motion.
I move to adopt resolution number 2026-06-17-18, the Leadership Development Services.
Second.
Thank you. All right. Roll call vote. Susan Cox?
Yes.
Michelle Weber, yes. Pete Knox?
Yes.
Lawrence Green?
Yes.
Heather Murphy?
Aye.
Gino Grimaldi?
Yes.
Kelly Sutherland?
Yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Next item, Madam Vice President, is adoption of resolution number 2026-06-17-19, fixed route service policy. And we'll invite Dave Roth back to speak to this item.
All right. Good evening again. Dave Roth, Director of Planning. I'm here tonight to bring forward for adoption the revised fixed route service policy. So I'll go through a very brief presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions afterwards. So go ahead to the next slide, please. All right. So a little bit of background first. The FTA requires transit agencies to develop and maintain service standards and service policies as a condition of federal funding. So the way that we do that is we house those within our fixed route service policy. Our service policy was last revised and adopted back in 2022, and it establishes the standards and criteria used to design, evaluate, and adjust fixed route transit service. It does not look at other services like paratransit or on-demand services purely for fixed route service. You'll see on the screen there an image. This image is taken from the actual updated policy, and I just wanted to make mention of the connection between the service policy and some of the outcome areas that we talk a lot about here at LTD in terms of how our services support these bigger community outcomes. So in terms of healthcare, workforce, housing, and education, this is a tool that makes sure that we are looking at our service and optimizing our service so that we do see these positive outcomes within our communities. The Components itself within the policy include our service overview, service design standards. So that's thinking about coverage versus ridership, trying to use straight lines as much as we can with service when we can. We can't always do that because of the street grid. It includes performance standards and metrics that we use when we're evaluating our service evaluation procedures, our Title VI policy, policy maintenance procedure, and then some appendices and a glossary of terms. Next slide, please. So in terms of the process itself, got some notes I'm going to read here. So during the summer of 2025, we engaged with a consultant. It was Nelson Nygaard, who also helped us complete our system review back in 2023. They were brought on to provide technical assistance and updating the policy. The project team, and I should just acknowledge that Heather Lindsay, one of our senior service planners who's not here tonight, she's on vacation in Las Vegas. She was the project manager for this project, so I just want to make sure that she's acknowledged for her work on this. The project team engaged closely with our staff across different functions as well throughout the organization and solicited feedback with the SPC. So as I mentioned before, we had visited the SPC along this update process 2 times during the process to get their feedback. And in terms of the update itself, an adoption process, so Nelson Nygaard facilitated 2 work sessions with LTD staff. So it was really important for us to make sure that we were engaging staff across the organization on doing this this project so that we were working on good information and weren't missing anything along the way. Those workshops were held in July and October of 2025. And we worked through some draft revisions incorporating that feedback. Draft recommendations were presented to SPC at its November 2025 meeting, and then feedback from that briefing was incorporated into the policy. The final policy was presented to SPC in May of this year for discussion and feedback. Members of the SPC provided positive feedback on the final policy. So in terms of the process, just some more detail here. We integrated new and updated policies. We measured against peer agencies. You can see some of the documents that are kind of hard to read, but we looked at some other peers, TriMet, Chariots, Fort Collins, and then Utah Transit, somewhere in Utah, sorry. We refined the fixed route categories and performance metrics, and then refreshed the policy design and graphics. So one of the big goals of this project was not just the update itself with the technical terms, but to make sure that this document was something that was legible by the public. And so we worked pretty hard at making sure that this was a document that was really accessible and easy to understand for the public. Next slide. So in terms of the key policy updates themselves, so we simplified route types. So previously we had different route categories across the system, and we had 6 of those. But one of those former categories was a single route in itself. It was the 79X. So it didn't make a lot of sense to have that just isolated as a single category. So we migrated that into the college routes because it is really a college type route. We made some changes to the route productivity threshold. So the previous policy looked at an average across each route category in terms of performance rather than a flat just threshold across that particular category. So we removed some of the math that was required to look at the performance of individual routes and made it just a lot more simple to understand for those using the tool. We included a new performance monitoring framework and recommended mitigation measures. So you'll see in this table here, we assigned by a productivity threshold, and that productivity threshold is average weekday riders per revenue hour by route type. And so we have these categories in terms of exceeding that productivity threshold, standard, meeting the standard, there's the monitor threshold, and then an unsatisfactory threshold. And so as we look at the productivity across the different route categories, we can look and say, this one is not quite meeting the expectations it might be in that monitor category, and it gives us clear direction on the types of mitigations that we might do if it's not meeting the expectations for route productivity. So that might be a marketing campaign to try to drive ridership, other tools to communicate with our riders, and then you go on down the list and you introduce larger mitigations. So you might actually think about increasing the frequency or even adjusting the route itself to try to hit other locations where we might generate better productivity. You'll see a couple of the route types down below, community and rural, they have a not applicable under the monitor threshold. And the reason being is that those types of routes, we just expect them to have lower productivity anyway because they're more of a coverage type route rather than a ridership generating route. So those ones we're a little bit less concerned about in terms of that monitoring threshold. We simplified and provided more accurate frequency and headway ranges. So this is telling us what we should expect in terms of frequency by the different route types. So for example, MX right now is at 10-minute headways, 10-minute frequency. And then we have different frequencies as you go down the line. And the ridership type routes will have higher frequency. As you get down the line to community and rural, they're going to have a lower frequency because they're a larger coverage area, dispersed geography, and we're just not able to put that level of service out. And we just updated the table inside the document so it was accurate to our current system. We included new bus stop spacing recommendations. So one of the balancing acts that we do is we balance basically speed and efficiency of our service versus access. And that plays out in terms of how far apart our stops are spaced. So if you have stops that are spaced really closely together, that equates to a slower service, slower buses, less reliable buses. If you space them further apart, it equates to more reliable buses and faster service. But the trade-off there is that you might have fewer stop amenities and you require longer walking distances for people to access our stops. So the new policy lays out a framework for how we think about bus stop spacing and bus stop rebalancing. So that's something that we might apply in a network redesign project or introducing a new route. It can help us understand what's the optimal spacing of a stop. And a big component of that is public engagement. And it gets back to our communications framework work that we've done the last couple of years to make sure that we're really clearly communicating to our community, our riders, the impacts and the trade-offs of these types of decisions. Getting close to the end here. Then we also included updated and compliant Title VI language and definitions. We were missing a little bit of information in there, so we've added that back in to make sure we're compliant with FTA regulations. And then finally, we updated the definition of a major service change. The previous version had a little bit too much objectivity in terms of what was defined as a major service change, and the new policy is, too much subjectivity. The new policy has more objectivity in terms of defining what a major service change looks like. So I believe that's the end of the presentation. I will mention that this is a living document. This isn't something that sits on the shelf. We do use this as we're going through our bid cycles, and typically we have larger changes in terms of our service in the fall every year. So we have 3 bid changes, 3 service changes across the year. Maybe some minor tweaks in the summer and fall, and then or summer and winter, and then in fall is when we introduce larger changes. So this really has more applicability at that fall time frame. So happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, any questions? Wait, is there? Okay. Heather, go ahead.
Dave, thanks for all of this work. I just have a question, maybe a little more abstract, and first a comment. One of the most frequent subjects of communication from within my district is about fixed routes, changes to fixed routes. And so just for the record, if you could very quickly just answer, how is input from the neighborhood or community groups incorporated? Just to have it down for people so that they know.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we collect feedback throughout the year. We have a system for documenting customer and rider input throughout the year. And we look at that when we get to those bid changes. And as I mentioned, typically the fall bid is where we would make more substantial service changes. So as we're getting into that, we look at the feedback that we've received throughout the year. We also go back to our established service or system review, which lays out the roadmap for how we implement changes over about a 3-year period. So we make changes on the sort of the fall bid. We have a roadmap for that sort of 3-year time frame, and that particular planning process goes through a lot of public engagement and public input. So we collect feedback throughout the year. We go through larger planning efforts to know when we're going to make more substantial changes. And we're doing that right now with the system review. So that's still a live document for us, and it carries us through at least one more year of service changes. And then so the next layer on top of that is the long-range mobility plan, which we just kicked off, which is Connect 2045. And that's an effort that we would tackle probably every 5 or 6 years. We'll do a big push for community engagement and community input. And that way we can hear from broad swaths of the community, and we can have those conversations about trade-offs and where we direct our service and our limited resources, to be frank. Yeah.
Great, thank you. I did have communication that someone in a district had applied for that when it opened, so thank you so much for that.
Gino?
I'm having a difficult time understanding what the impact of adopting this policy is. And part of a little bit of a concern is, okay, if I vote for this tonight, 3 months down the road, you say, well, that was the result of, we implemented this policy. And I'm having a hard time visualizing what those changes might be.
Yeah, I mean, this is a highly technical document, and it is something that is the primary audience for this tool really is our service planners. So it gives them objective standards for how they do their work and think about the service. Again, one of our goals was to make this document more legible and accessible by the public. And I think that is a big benefit of where we've gone with this now, where the previous document was not an easy read, and it didn't include graphical elements. To your question, though, is I don't see substantive changes in how we do our service planning as a result of the changes that are implemented here. The one that we will have bigger conversations about, to be frank, is the bus stop rebalancing. And really the key here is that it lays out how we do that. And it requires us to do a lot of community engagement. So that's probably the most substantive policy change that we have in here.
So down the road, if something changes out there in the system and we as a board don't like that change, are we confined by the fact that we had just adopted a policy that created that change?
You would have full visibility to the rationale for the changes as well as the connection to the service policy. There's no hidden objective here. This is a required policy we have to maintain every few years. So this is a standard update.
Okay, thanks.
All right, any other questions? No? Okay, thank you, Dave.
And I believe there's a motion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would entertain a motion.
I move to adopt resolution number 2026-06-17-19, adopting the 2026 LTD fixed route service policy.
Second.
Okay, let's go to the vote. Susan?
Yes.
Michelle, yes. Pete?
Yes.
Lawrence?
Yes.
Heather?
Right.
Gino?
Yes.
And Kelly?
Yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously.
Next item.
Thank you, CEO Otten. Thank you, members of the board. I'm John Allen, here to talk about STIF discretionary applications. First, just briefly, let me mention what these are not. So you're, I'm sure, familiar with STIF formula funds and our STIF plan. These are separate from that, which will come to the board later this year. So this is STIF discretionary, and I'll talk a little bit about what that means. These are also not 5310 funded applications, so we will get to that a little bit later tonight. For example, you had heard from many members of the public regarding Circle of Friends. That'll be part of the 5310 portion, which will come later this evening. So this is going to focus on STIF discretionary funds. The STIF discretionary process, there's a few changes this biennium. This is a competitive grant process. So whereas STIF formula funds come to us as the qualified entity and stay within our area, we are not entitled or guaranteed to any STIF discretionary funds. These are applications that we make to the state, which then get reviewed, and there's a process upon referral from the board where it would be reviewed at the state level and awards would be made on a statewide basis that aren't necessarily unique to our area. It was a very ambitious timeline this year. So we had, you can see that it was split into several different application processes, but we had roughly a month to get our initial application materials together, which in the world of grants is incredibly ambitious. So a lot of hard work involved from members of the committee, the board, and staff to be able to present these materials for you today. So I also wanted to just note, if you don't mind, next slide. These will be for approximately $25 million worth of funds statewide that we will be competing for. Split between several different discretionary programs. So the STIF Advisory Committee is a committee of the board that reviewed prospective applications that are part of the recommendations that will be before you today. First, just some brief special thanks. So we had board members Knox and Grimaldi serve on the STIF Advisory Committee. It is an intense amount of work, and as I noted, on an ambitious timeline. So the board already works incredibly hard. We see that both in our meetings and in the 184-page packet that's before us tonight. Similarly sized materials on a very quick timeline as part of the STIF Advisory Committee. Just my personal thanks to all the work that went involved in being able to make that happen. Also, just thanks both to Norma and Brianna for staff support, for dedication throughout those meetings, to staff member Kathleen Flynn, whose involvement and oversight over the STIF process was essential to making this happen, and excellent facilitation. And we also had members of the STIF Advisory Committee, Dave Reeser, Josh Kaczynski, and Carrie Turner, who have taken on leadership roles at different points throughout the process to help ensure that those meetings have culminated in the work that we've got before you today. So we also had many other members of the STIF Advisory Committee who have been involved. There's 13 members or seats present on that committee. An incredible amount of work. So thanks to everyone, everyone's involvement. Next slide, please. Following board recommendations today, any discretionary applications would then go to the state for review following a grant evaluation process that we've got on our screen, essentially assessing what the public benefit is of these programs. So I want to make sure that essentially it helps improve transportation in our area. This would involve review of PTAC, a committee at the ODOT level, and then finally culminating in a review of the OTC, Oregon Transportation Commission. So a fairly lengthy review process. These would be for grant funds that would begin July 1st of 2027, so fairly forward-looking. That neatly dovetails with the expiration of current funds. So we're already have some programs that happen to be receiving stiff discretionary funds. One of the qualifications for discretionary application is that it either needs to be for buses or facilities, bus facilities, or continue ongoing operations or pilot programs. So you'll see a lot of these are ongoing or pilot operations that were eligible. It's not just any program that would be able to apply for stiff discretionary funds. So next slide, please. The STIF Advisory Committee made, through an extensive review process, made recommendations. In your packet are the recommendations as they were recommended by the STIF Advisory Committee, but there have been some adjustments since that time that I'll just note. So what these programs would actually be funding include bike share through City of Eugene. You'll see on there that there is a wheelchair accessible taxi pilot program. That application has since been withdrawn from City of Eugene. That doesn't mean necessarily that the program wouldn't be operating, just that it wouldn't be using stiff discretionary funds to support it. The Link Lane Eugene Florence route operated through LCOG, an additional bus to support the Link Lane services, the Link Lane Florence Yachats route, the Diamond Express that connects Eugene and Oak Ridge. The next slide, if you don't mind. LTD's Rural Shuttle Pilot, which looks to provide service currently in Oregon 36, Mohawk Valley, and South Lane. The Downtown Circulator, you may know that as the #1 loop service. A replacement vehicle for the Diamond Express. A replacement vehicle for the Downtown Circular, AKA the #1. A fixed route replacement vehicle. And then electric vehicle charging project that U of O has proposed. That would be for the Portland, Eugene, Cascades route, providing electric vehicle charging for that route. So all of those applications received that review. All are considered for, with the exception of the wheelchair accessible vehicle program, put forward before the board's consideration as part of a resolution to be able to provide those applications to the state for their consideration. So just to reemphasize, even though regardless of the board's approval or decisions around these applications, they'll still go through a statewide discretionary competitive process. So we may not be guaranteed any funding for any of these programs, but board's approval would allow us to compete. So next slide. Went through very briefly, but opportunity for any questions from the board about either that process, the programs themselves, or any other questions. Otherwise, we would look for a motion towards a resolution.
All right. Any questions? Pete?
Not a question, but I just wanted to add on to what John has already said, as having lived through the STIF Advisory Committee process, and I got to give staff a lot of kudos this time around. Either I've done this too many times, or it's gotten a lot easier, and you guys have got it really organized better. But it is a lot of information. The advisory committee did approve unanimously all of the projects that are before you, and they asked some good questions, but I personally will be voting yes on this. So.
Okay, thank you, Pete. Heather?
Thank you, and thanks for everyone for the work on this. I guess I want to back up and ask one question. I heard you say, John, that not everybody can apply for these funds. So is that fully filtered then through LTD, even the ideas of the projects? Maybe I missed that.
That's a great question. There is guidance that the state provides. So ODOT publishes a STIF discretionary handbook that notes the different types of entities that are qualified to apply. So that could include public transportation provider, someone who's essentially providing services to the general public. So there's some limitations on who is eligible to apply. And there's also some limitations in this cycle on what types of projects are eligible to apply. So they typically need to be for ongoing public transportation operations projects or pilot programs that public transportation has put forward, or they need to be for buses or bus facilities.
Thank you.
Susan?
I just wanted to add my appreciation to all the hard work. It truly was an ambitious effort, and everyone really rose to the challenge. I appreciate it very much.
Okay. Don't see any other questions. Would entertain a motion?
All right, I moved to adopt resolution number 2026-06-17-20, adoption of the approval of the fiscal year 28 STIF discretionary and STIF inter-community funds recommendations for submission to ODOT.
I'll second that.
Okay, we'll call the vote. Susan?
Yes.
Michelle, yes. Pete?
Yes.
Lawrence?
Yes.
Heather?
Aye.
Gino?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Okay, passes unanimously.
Next item, President, adoption resolution number 2026-06-17-21, federal fiscal year 28,
Thank you so much. Okay, so now we're going to be speaking to the use of Section 5310 funds. It is a very similar process. So same involvement by same individuals, same STIF advisory committee, generally same timeline, so very ambitious timeline. That's fairly new to us this biennium, so I don't want to understate just how much work it takes to be able to put something like this together within that type of timeline. It's also, the overall grant timeline is a little bit different than in prior bienniums, where 5310 funds will now match the federal fiscal year as opposed to LTD's fiscal year and ODOT's fiscal year, which is a slight change. I also wanted to note there are some differences in how these funds are used, who is eligible to apply, and the overall process. So let me just start by noting, feel free, next slide, thanks. This is a smaller amount of funds, but it is designated or allocated for our area. So as part of LTD's district here. So these are funds that are designated to benefit older adults and people with disabilities. And let me start by saying all LTD programs benefit older adults and people with disabilities. We do not have inaccessible programs at LTD. However, programs that receive 5310 funds are often specifically designated especially for programs that may solely or primarily benefit older adults and people with disabilities. So that's the lens in which we were going through this process. It also included a formula grant technical workshop that LTD hosted, which could bring any nonprofits, eligible applicants in our area, other entities that were interested in new or different or innovative programs in our area to be able to participate and note that these funds were eligible for application. I will say that's an incredibly tight time frame for any organization to be able to supply application materials, but we were able to open that up to the general public and ensure that any interested entity had access to information, support, and was able to apply. That involved applications both to LTD and to ODOT, which were then combined into materials that the STIF Advisory Committee reviewed for your consideration tonight. Next slide, please. The STIF Advisory Committee uses three main priorities to be able to choose how to allocate these 5310 funds, and these are based on the lane coordinated transportation plan and our 5310 project management plan. That also happens to be currently under review. The coordinated plan is getting updates, as it does and should periodically, and so that's working its way through our community to make sure that it has wide opportunity for feedback and updates. That will no doubt come before the board at a later date. At this point in time, we continue to use our existing coordinated plan, which establishes three main priorities for allocations of funds, with the highest and top priority being keep doing what you're doing. If you have funds to be able to maintain existing services, try to be able to maintain and not remove any existing transit service. And then if additional funds are made available, consider the expansion of existing programs. Can you serve more people, more places? And then if additional funds or resources are available, consider being able to fund either new priorities, new programs, or other services. So that was the overall framework or guidelines that the STIF Advisory Committee had to review application materials. Next slide, if you don't mind. So we were able to receive application materials from Circle of Friends, and that was for a very specific type of vehicle that would include additional wheelchair mobility device securement stations than a typical bus loadout. So on one of our 40-foot or 60-foot buses, we typically have 2 available securement stations for mobility devices. This would be a very unique configuration that would have up to 10. Very rare that we would have a use case for something like that within our industry, but particularly for a provider that would specifically be serving populations that use mobility devices. It creates a new type of option, which was reviewed by the STIF Advisory Committee and unanimously recommended to include in the recommendations before you today as part of the resolution. Next slide, please. These are the recommendations themselves. You'll note a couple of changes that we've made as part of the STIF Advisory Committee's work. So staff originally came forward with recommendations based on maintaining existing service levels and existing programs. We moved some money around to accommodate the Circle of Friends vehicle purchase, so that would go towards increased asks as part of the STIF formula process, which would come before the board later this year. So noting that where there are match funds or STIF formula funds, those are just estimates based on what we would anticipate for future asks in a process. None of that is locked in or otherwise. That would be something that the board would review at a future meeting, but just noting our estimates for overall program costs and what we would typically estimate our need would be under the existing programs. That also moved some funds out of our Crucial Connections and Veterans Transportation Program, so you'll see that they have $1 associated with those asks. The reason for maintaining $1 is so that we have some flexibility if we need to move money around. If we're able to come in under budget on a project, we would still be allowed under the 5310 program to be able to shift funds in there to essentially backfill if we had any extra. As this, we are required to use the entirety of the funds in the allocation period in which the grant agreement is made. Next slide, please. So with those as all the programs, we have all of the advisory committee's materials included either linked or in the packet themselves in the board. So anyone that wants to get into more granular detail on that process. We have access to all those materials available to you, but in the best I can at a higher summary level, I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, we'd look to make a motion on a resolution.
All right, any questions or comments?
I do have one question.
Okay, go ahead.
Would Circle of Friends own the bus, or would LTD still own the bus?
That's an interesting question. So the way typically that works in these types of grant agreements is that ODOT usually maintains primary ownership on the title, whereas LTD is typically listed as secondary, and then that's leased to a third party, usually for a nominal fee, I think historically about $50 a year for use of the vehicle.
And the maintenance of the vehicles, the responsibility is LTD or Circle of Friends?
Those details typically get worked out both in a combination of grant and leasing arrangements, but LTD and ODOT both maintain an interest in making sure that vehicles are properly maintained, and there's a lot of federal regulations that come along with the use of 5310 funds that get incorporated into any of the agreements.
Okay. Do these children and families use rideshare now at all? Rideshare? Is that an option for them too?
I think that's at a more technical level than I can typically speak to. We do happen to have Circle of Friends staff in the audience if we wanted to get into additional detail. I'm really only able to speak at a high level to the program.
Okay, thank you, John.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, I would entertain a motion.
All righty. I move to adopt resolution number 2026-06-17-21, approving the federal fiscal year 28 to 29, section 5310 proposals.
Second.
Okay, thank you. We'll call the vote. Susan?
Yes.
Michelle, yes. Pete?
Yes.
Lawrence?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Gino?
Yes.
And Kelly?
Enthusiastic, yes.
Unanimously passes that one as well. And the next item?
Adoption of resolution number 2026-06-17-22, Regional Mesh Program Evaluation. That sounds mysterious, doesn't it? Mesh. We're going to invite Brandon Melton to speak to this item. It'll get familiar real quick.
Thank you, Chief Otten and members of the board. So you'll recall, perhaps back in April, I came to the board to share an update on the ATTAIN grant program. We received funding and I have an agreement in place now with FHWA to proceed with our $5.4 million grant, and which is matched with STIF at $1.2 million. So pretty substantial project. And just as a refresher, the three main components of that are developing a regional transit planning platform, a integration of our trip planner transit app and the data from that into that platform, and then using that system to help develop a mobility on demand pilot in the Bethel area. So those are the three major components. The ATTAIN grant also stipulates that we do an evaluation of that process. So the co-creation process of us working with stakeholders and other community groups like LCOG, ODOT, the Bethel School District. And so they're seeing how we're going about making this program happen. And ultimately, they'll develop a toolkit and a roadmap that can be used as a template to replicate this project other places in the country. So getting that technology out that helps us to do better transit planning with regionally with other mobility providers in the county, all the mobility providers in the county. So as part of that, University of Oregon was identified in the grant application. They're uniquely positioned to do an independent evaluation, which we need as part of this. And so the resolution here is authorizing us to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with UO to conduct that evaluation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Okay, I don't see any questions. Thank you for the presentation. I will entertain a motion.
Okay. I move to adopt resolution number 2026-06-17-22, authorizing the chief executive officer to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the University of Oregon for the purpose of delivering an independent program evaluation of the regional mobility enabling service hub project. Excuse me.
I'll second that.
Okay, we'll proceed to the vote. Susan?
Yes.
Michelle, yes. Pete?
Yes.
Lawrence?
Yes.
Heather?
Aye.
Gino?
Yes.
And Kelly?
Yes.
Unanimous approval. Next item.
Thank you.
Next item is the adoption of board bylaws. Kristen Denmark is on Zoom. There she is.
Hi, sorry I couldn't be there in person. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I will keep it brief. I'm happy to go over a little bit of an overview. In the past year or so, we have updated all the committee bylaws. So we worked with the bylaws committee to do that. And then those all came to the board, I believe, late December of last year. And so the kind of last thing that was left was the board bylaws. We recently went with the bylaws committee to go over some updates, a lot of which are just changing the formatting and structure of the committee bylaws, removing kind of redundant language and updating some staff titles. I did go section by section and list some more substantive updates, and I'm not gonna I'm not gonna recite all of those. I'm trying to scroll on my computer here while I'm presenting, so give me just a moment. I just wanted to call your attention to a couple larger ones or more significant revisions that we got feedback from the committee and wanted to flag for the board's attention. In section 4B, the language was changed to require a consensus of the majority of the board to form an ad hoc committee. Previously, it was unclear whether just the president could do that on their own. In practice, the board, the entire board was asked about an ad hoc committee, and so the bylaw committee wanted to follow the kind of past practice. And let's see here. In section 5, we had a discussion about this with the bylaw committee, and ultimately the bylaw committee followed the kind of recommendation that I put in there, that generally remote attendance would not be permitted for executive sessions unless the CEO determines it's desirable or necessary. If anyone from the LTD side appears at an executive session remotely, then the media also has a right to attend remotely. If no one attends remotely from the LTD side, then the media has a right to attend in person. Of course, if a quorum can't be reached, we would allow remote attendance. And so the bylaw committee thought that was something that should be adopted and directed me to include that in the bylaws. And I think we probably just have one more change that I wanted to flag. And of course, I'm happy for any questions. In section 8, there was some language in the prior bylaws that conflicted with state law requiring indemnification of board members. It had some pretty narrow language about when indemnification of board members was allowed and when it wasn't. And there's a statute that requires indemnification in most circumstances, unless the board member has met a pretty high standard of malfeasance in office or willful or wanton neglect of duty. There are a lot of cases that cite this statute. And so in talking to the bylaw committee, I recommended that we just follow the language of the statute in our bylaws. And hopefully we never need that section of the bylaws, but if we do, it's really going to be an analysis based on the facts and circumstances at the time. So those are the major summaries. There's obviously some other changes in there, but I don't want to recite the memo. And then we're also recommending, in addition to updating the bylaws, at a later meeting, we would do two things. We would repeal Ordinance 52, which really just has rules that mimic what is in public meetings law. And it's really not necessary anymore, that ordinance. And then the board governance policy manual should also be updated and brought to the board for future adoption. So those are the major summaries, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Any questions? Heather?
Kristen, I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand the part about the executive session because tonight we will be remote and on that, so I'm not clear.
Sure. So a lot of several other governing bodies in town have been adopting this recently, and so it came to my attention. And so it would obviously be a board decision if you want this in the bylaws. It would prevent, board members, or like I'm attending remotely tonight, from being there. So there are times when perhaps a board member would attend the regular meeting remotely, but then they wouldn't be able to attend an executive session. So that's the con, is that it could limit some board members attending because they're not able. If you adopt this, then the default would be that you don't attend remotely. On the other hand, the concern is that the media has a right to attend. They can attend in person. They can attend remotely. There's a lot, it's difficult sometimes to identify the media when there's not a face on the screen, and there's a really broad definition of media under Oregon law. And so there's some concern about media attending remotely, and will they, they're not supposed to report on what is said in executive session, but will they? And so if someone's there in person, you can see their face, they can identify who they are. And so it's something that more governing bodies are adopting. It's not a law, it's definitely a policy decision. And then if we were in a case like this where, hey, we need board members to attend remotely to make a quorum, or like there's a presenter, Jameson would know that, and he would be able to say, oh, we're going to hold it remotely. But if we adopted what's in the proposed bylaws about remote attendance, then the default would be only those in person attend. And so that's definitely a policy decision for you all, but after talking to the committee, that's what they were proposing to adopt.
Okay, I guess there have been, correct me if I'm wrong, but there have actually been executive sessions that we were called to where we were remote. Many of us, or if not all of us, were remote. Am I inaccurate in that? I understand what you're saying, but.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't recall. It's very possible. And this wouldn't prevent it, because the CEO could say, no, we need to have that. So that's why it says necessary or desirable, like necessary for a quorum, or just if it's convenient or some other reason.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to belabor this, but legally speaking, in an executive session, should we have to visit something and it filters through the CEO, like aren't there some things that prevent, we would need to be present, and I am just seeing a possibility where if you call something suddenly, and some of us couldn't attend other than in person, but it has to go. I don't know. I'm a little I'm a little shaky on
Well,
this,
and
to
we
be
had,
honest.
yeah, and that, again, it's a policy decision. And so that's what I wanted to make sure that we brought it to you all for consideration. I'm pretty sure the city of Springfield has adopted this as a policy. And so that's one reason why I wanted to bring it to you. So, you know, we cannot do it. Another consideration was to have the board president decide, but I wasn't sure how dialed in the board president was to like what board members are attending remotely, if I'm attending remotely or another presenter. And so we know the CEO's probably more dialed into how people are attending. It's also something that, you know, if the majority didn't want in there, we could strike that section and not have it. It's one sentence that was added in. But I felt like it was pretty timely to bring to your consideration because other entities are making this, but you're hitting on, there's pros and cons to it. And you definitely give up something by having that as the default.
I mean, I don't want to disrupt the entire process. I appreciate the work of the committee and I'm not on it. I hate to vote against it because of one little thing, but I definitely see some potential cons in this. So I'll just leave that there.
Ellie, you have your hand up.
Yeah.
Yes. I see a benefit to it because I don't think there's so much of an issue with regard to media reporting, you know, even if they attend virtually, but we don't know who's in the room with people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the problem. When you're having, you know, an executive session that's virtual, I could have my camera off, or I could be, you know, there could be 5 people in the room listening. And that, to me, is important that we address that. And as long as there's a solution for us to be able to gather immediately in the case of an emergency, it feels like, you know, that it makes sense. That's the pro for me. I hear what you're saying, Heather, and I understand it, but it feels like there's a reason why there would be other entities and why we would consider this. I mean, we just don't have any control when we're doing it virtually, and we just don't know who's there, really.
Yeah, I agree. There are times I've wondered that too. Thank you.
Gino?
Looking at a worst-case scenario, Kristen, what would happen if something was going south with the CEO? And I don't anticipate that happening, but, you know, it can happen and has happened in other organizations. And the CEO is the person who can say, no, you're not going to do an executive session, and we need that executive session, and we need to do it quickly and remotely.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So the CEO couldn't stop an executive session from happening, but they could say, no, we want to just do it remotely because that's the default. So the only decision for the CEO there is whether or not to change from the default of having it remotely. I mean, it would be very easy to substitute in board president to address that concern instead of CEO. That it's just, you know, my concern was not adding more work onto a volunteer role, and but to address that, we could put the board president there.
I would
Can there be 2 people there?
Hang on, Kelly.
I mean, we could do CEO or board president.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you could have that issue with any person you put in that role, right? I mean, you could potentially have that issue no matter who that person is. So if we say CEO or president, then, you know, if there is an issue on either side of that, we'd be dealing with that anyway.
Kristen, wouldn't you as the council be involved with this anyway, so you could help guide the process?
Not really. I mean, I'm often involved with like what basis to go into executive session. But, you know, whether people are attending remotely, I haven't known about that up to this point.
But I think the clerk always sends just to everyone who's going to be attending either remote or in person.
Yeah, I think the board clerk probably gathers that information.
Yeah.
It didn't feel right to have the board clerk making the decision about being remote or not, the whole executive
Collecting it,
session.
yeah.
Yeah, but I think that goes to the board clerk, and then, I'm often not, I don't know, I'm not aware of it.
But I think if it's a kind of emergency that we're talking about, you would be.
Yeah, if it's an emergency situation, it would be, because normally staff will check with me and say, what statute should we cite to go into executive session so
Exactly.
that it's legally
Yep.
proper? And so in that I'm aware that there is an executive session and for what basis it is typically.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm more concerned about the unknowns of who's in the room. I think that's a greater concern or liability than the other issues. I think the other issues could be worked out.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Lawrence, go ahead.
Is removing that sentence like an all or nothing proposition, or if we removed it, could we discuss it, I guess, more in depth and work through those pros and cons, and then if it's something we want added, put it back in, or in some form of it?
So I think that it's a question for me, but it's a little hard to tell since I'm online.
Yeah, it was for you, sorry. Sorry, yeah, it was for you.
But yes, so I mean, you all could say, hey, we just want to pull, I believe it's one sentence that was added. And so you could adopt the bylaws as amended by pulling that sentence. Or if you want to amend it to have CEO and board president, you could adopt them in that way. And so then you could otherwise adopt the document and we could focus on this very narrow issue if you all want to move it forward but have more time. So that any of those options would be fine.
Kelly, go ahead.
I'll just share that I would prefer to either leave it in or add board president or CEO. And I would not be in favor of striking it. I think it's a good option for us.
I agree with Kelly. I think making sure that we're keeping the integrity of an executive session is important, and I think we can work around any of the scheduling concerns as far as remote participation and whether that is appropriate for that specific meeting. I think, the confidentiality of an executive session, you don't know who's in the room. And I just think it's really important that we acknowledge that. Anyone else? Okay.
I agree.
Okay, so I think that means we want to move forward with a motion that adopts the bylaws as presented.
I move to adopt the bylaws as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, Susan?
Yes.
Michelle, yes. Pete?
Yes.
Lawrence?
Yes.
Heather?
Aye.
Gino?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Okay. That is the last action item. And Pete, I want to give you a gold star for working through all those motions. Glad it wasn't me this time. Yes, we will have one after executive session. Thank you, Gina, for, you're not off the hook yet, Pete. Okay. Okay, so the next item, we will be moving into executive session. Blake, do I read these instructions now or just, okay. The Lane Transit District Board of Directors will now enter into executive session pursuant to ORS 192.6602E, allowing the board to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to carry on real property transactions, and ORS 192.6602D, allowing the board to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to carry on labor negotiations. Today, we will have 2 separate executive sessions. The first session pertains to real property. The second session pertains to the labor negotiations. Following the executive sessions, the board will return to regular session. Designated staff and representatives of the news media may remain in the room. All other members of the public are asked to leave at this time. Before we begin, I'd like to remind any media present that reporting on the content of our discussions during this executive session is prohibited, except to note the general subject as previously stated. No decisions or votes may take place during executive session. Once we conclude, we will return to regular session. District Board of Directors is now in executive session. The date is June 17th, and the And our final item for the evening is ratification of ATU 757 contract. Are there any questions? Okay, I would entertain a motion.
All right, I move to adopt resolution number 2026-06-17-23, approval of the contract between Lane Transit District and the Amalgamated Transit Union, Division number 757, main contract.
Second?
All right, we'll call the vote. Susan?
Yes.
Michelle, yes. Pete?
Yes.
Lawrence?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Chino?
Yes.
And Kelly?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. That is our final item for the evening. We are now adjourned.